parents once lived and worked in a city along the southwestern coast of China. They rented an apartment near their workplace. At first, everything seemed perfect, but about a year after moving in, my dad began experiencing terrifying nightmares every night. My mom told me that he would often mumble incoherently in his sleep, his hands flailing as if battling some unseen force. He could never quite explain it, only that something was relentlessly pursuing him in these dreams. One particularly frightening night, he abruptly leaped out of bed, standing atop it and screaming while pointing into the darkness. My mom was terrified beyond words. Initially, I dismissed their stories as stress from work, but my mom insisted that during that time, whenever they entered the apartment, they would be confronted with a peculiar, damp wood scent. The strange part was that the apartment had almost no wooden furniture except for a wardrobe, and the weather was bone dry with no rain. My mom said it was the kind of smell often found in coffin stores. Not sure if it's a thing in the States, but in many East Asia folktales, the smell relates to spirit presence. The scent, the nightmares, the inexplicable fear. Something sinister was lurking in that apartment, and it had taken hold of my dad. What troubled them even more were the insects. Strange little creatures started appearing in every corner of the house, and even large centipedes. My mom is quite obsessive with clearness. She cleans the house 3 times a day and strictly controls the habits of basically everyone around her. So this situation was surely bizarre. I remember my dad even got bitten by a huge rat. Terrible. After all these happened, my mom started to wonder if it had something to do with Mr. Jiang upstairs. He was an old friend of theirs, a devout Buddhist who was passionate about spreading his faith. My dad found him a bit much at first, because Mr. Jiang would constantly use frightening tales to dissuade him from eating meat, like accusing him of eating dead bodies. Mr. Jiang would play Buddhist sutras at home, blasting them so loudly that they could be clearly heard in the stairwell down to the first floor. However, Mr. Jiang was considerate enough to stop the chanting by 10 p.m. each night, resuming promptly at 8 a.m. the next morning. I guess this routine is noticeable but tolerable. The final straw that led them to move out happened when they brought back pineapple cakes from Taiwan, including a box for Mr. Jiang. As they went upstairs to deliver it, they spotted a woman with long braided hair standing near the shoe cabinet in front of his apartment. She stood silently, not responding to their questions, while the loud Buddhist chants continued. When Mr. Jiang's wife opened the door moments later, the woman had vanished in an instant. This eerie encounter, coupled with all the other strange occurrences, prompted my parents to make the immediate decision to leave that very day. It's quite intriguing that during that period, both my dad and Mr. Jiang were experiencing significant business setbacks and bad luck. Meanwhile, the newlywed couple on the second floor ended up divorcing, with their fights escalating to the point where the entire building was aware of it. Shortly afterward, it became known that the landlord of the building had amassed substantial debts and had fled, leaving the tenants scattered. In the end, my parents moved to a new place far from that unsettling apartment. They never experienced the same nightmares, strange scents, or eerie encounters again. Looking back, they often wondered about the strange chain of events and the mysterious woman they had seen that day. It remained a curious and spine-chilling memory, reminding them that sometimes the unseen forces around us can impact our lives, whether we understand them or not. When I got back last night, it was the same as always. The parking lot was full of cars, yet the place felt deserted. I had a hard time finding a spot close to my building, even though there were so many cars. I know people live here. I've seen the man with the box and Macy, but it's always eerily quiet, especially late at night, and it gives me chills the deeper I think about it. I walked up the stairs to my apartment, the echo of my footsteps, the only sound in the stairwell. Inside, I tossed my keys onto the counter next to another key that had been bothering me. Trying to stay calm, I pushed it aside and covered it with a notebook. I needed a cigarette to unwind, so I headed out to the balcony, thinking it would be the end of my night. Leaning on the railing, I let the nicotine soothe me. Across the street, house lights were flicking off as people called it a night. As I finished my cigarette and stubbed it out in the overflowing ashtray, I noticed a stain on the rug from the coffee Macy spilled. It covered the spot where the box incident had left scratches on the concrete. Curious, I grabbed my phone and used the flashlight to lift the rug and inspect the concrete. The scratches were gone, as if they had never been there. While I was puzzling over this, my phone buzzed with a text. My heart skipped a beat, and I almost dropped my phone. It was Macy. I hesitated before opening it. "Hey, I saw you get home," she wrote. How had she seen me? I'm always vigilant when I come home, and I hadn't seen her anywhere. Maybe her window faced the parking lot. Still, it seemed strange she would notice and text me right away. I wasn't sure if I should feel flattered or worried, especially given her last text that was still visible above this one. I decided to probe a bit. "Oh, hey, yay, Lowell. I've been out with a friend all day," I replied, trying to sound casual and see if she would reveal anything. "Oh, fun. How was it?" she responded, unusually upbeat. "It was fun, yay. I'm a bit exhausted, haha," I replied, trying to avoid inviting her over. I was tired but also desperate for answers. I pressed on. "So how was your day? Anything interesting?" Hoping to draw out some information. "Yeah, I met a really nice guy in the building. He's cool, we should all hang out sometime." I knew exactly who she was talking about. Unable to stop myself, I asked, "Did he give you anything?" "Lol, yeah, actually, how'd you know?" "He left a box with a really nice note. It's locked, and I think he forgot the key." I looked at the key on my counter, still covered by the notebook. I had a bad feeling, but couldn't ignore it. Suddenly, I was startled by the sound of doors slamming open down the hallway. I peered out of my apartment to see every door wide open, each one pitch black inside. As I moved closer, hands began waving out from the doorways, then retreating and slamming the doors shut with angry knocks. This repeated all the way down the hall until I reached the last door, where Macy stood, facing away from me. She looked different, taller, with larger hands and broader shoulders. "Mem Macy?" I called out. She turned slowly, her eyes familiar, but everything else about her unnerving. She smiled, a wide, unsettling grin. I backed away, and she stepped into the hallway, still smiling. I hurried back to my apartment and locked the door. The screaming started again, this time coming from down the hall, getting closer. I grabbed my gun, trembling. The scream stopped abruptly right outside my door. My phone vibrated. It was Macy. "Want to open it?" she had texted. I didn't reply. Instead, I stayed up all night, too terrified to sleep. I finally dozed off in the early morning. I'm writing this now, trying to process what happened. I've taken extra shifts to avoid going home, hoping a few nights away will help me figure out what to do next. Thanks for watching our video. Have you ever had a really scary experience? We want to hear about it. You can tell us in two ways. Option 1 is write down what happened and email it to us. The email address is in the description below. We're excited to read your story and learn all about what happened. And the second option is record your story using your phone's recording feature. Make sure the sound is good, with no background noise. We want to make sure everyone can hear your scary story clearly. Pick whichever option works best for you, and let's explore your spooky experiences together. We're looking forward to hearing from you. And if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.